in my school, you won't teach like that." His angry voice boomed across the small circular table where just a few minutes ago I was reading books with first graders. This was how my principal began my new teacher evaluation conference during my second year of teaching. Things weren't going how I expected. At 23, I was a naive, ultimate optimist kind of new teacher. Have you ever been in this situation? One where you were taken completely off guard because you were young and hopelessly idealistic, where you knew what you were doing was good and right and thought everyone would appreciate it, even your new boss. How could I have thought that he would ever understand the engaged, playful activity happening in my classroom that day? He had never taught first grade. Why hadn't I thought to take out the district-issued curriculum and give a dog and pony show that would check all his boxes? It was in this moment I took my first steps to becoming a civilly disobedient teacher. I knew I could never teach the way he wanted me to teach and the way I knew was detrimental to my students' joy and curiosity. Heartbroken, I did what many new teachers do. I called up my best friend and asked if she thought I could get a job with her selling insurance. No offense to insurance companies. I was not alone in my disillusionment with teaching. According to the Minnesota Department of Education, Minnesota currently loses 1/3 of all of our new teachers in the first 5 years. Additionally, just a little over 50% of our licensed teachers in Minnesota are not practicing. These are not very promising statistics for the future of public education. Civilly disobedient teaching has helped me regain my voice, my choice, and my joy in the classroom again. Every year, I teach my second graders about leadership using the book Rosa by poet and political activist Dr. Nikki Giovanni. And every time we read this book together, we are awestruck by Rosa Parks' civilly disobedient actions, so beautifully depicted in the artwork of Brian Collier. The cover depicts James Blake, the bus driver, as he bellows his demand at Rosa. "Are you going to give up those seats? Are you going to stand?" Her power came to be called quiet strength. The clarity of her act was instructive to me. It is essential that I acknowledge that I am a white woman inspired by the heroic acts of a black woman. The bravery required in questioning our system of public education pales in comparison to that shown by Rosa Parks in this event and throughout her life. I am committed to understanding and building my awareness of my own privilege. As I learned more about Rosa Parks and other human rights activists, I came to understand that they did not just engage in large acts of civil disobedience, but many smaller acts. Large acts are a hallmark of revolutionary change, but they are not the engine. The engine that powers historical revolution is us. In 1968, Brazilian educator Paulo Freire wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed, a civilly disobedient book, it got him exiled from his country, about resisting oppression through education. As the world was just beginning to experience the emergence of youth-led, nonviolent protest, Friere wrote that asking why is the beginning of education, asking why is the beginning of revolution. As a teacher, this was very empowering information to me, because when I am at my most disempowered, when someone has told me what to teach, how I should teach it, and when I should teach it without ever having entered my classroom or talked to my students. I remember that the simple act of asking why is the beginning of civil disobedience. Today I want to talk about 3 shifts of thinking I have experienced as a civilly disobedient teacher. First, I will talk about radical patience and our need to slow down and let our children be children. Second, I will talk about teacher as practitioner, rediscovering the teacher's role as the practitioner. And third, I will talk about taking teaching personally. My call to civil disobedience came loud and clear in 2009 as my oldest son entered kindergarten. The academic bar had been raised higher than his little kindergarten arms could reach in the names of No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, and Common Core standards. I will never forget the image of his 5-year-old pudgy, dimpled fingers as they tried to count the tiny 12-point font dots on a page of kindergarten homework. Kindergarten homework was almost unheard of until educational policies such as these were instituted. The combination of his desire to be successful, to get it right, and the inappropriateness of the task was heartbreaking. I knew his development was appropriate for his age. I realized that the inappropriateness of the task was causing him not to succeed. Childhood should be a long, meandering hike, not a sprint. As new parents, we are encouragingly enthusiastic as we watch our babies learn to roll over and to blow raspberries and to talk. We afford them patience. We must afford the same patience to higher cognitive functions such as literacy and numeracy. Radical patience is even more critical when we think about our students who are entering school looking, speaking, or believing differently than their teachers and their peers. The learning needs may be different, but the child is not deficient. Culturally dominant knowledge, that which is white, privileged, linear, Christian, and I could go on, is highly valued by these types of educational policies and public schools, further alienating our most dynamic learners. When we afford patience, we instill our confidence in our children. We say to them, we know you will learn this. We trust in your brain and your body. We also give them permission to love the books they can read and the languages they can speak and the stories they can read. Our confidence builds theirs. Rosa Parks' quiet strength reminds me to anchor my decisions in what is right for children, even when it is inconvenient for adults. Radical patience has also required me to thoroughly examine why I chose the profession of teaching. Now, I would imagine many of us in here imagined or dreamed that someday we would positively impact the life of a child. Teacher as practitioner is not a new paradigm. As teachers, we get to live out that dream. But recent educational policies have encouraged school districts to take a business-minded, bottom-line approach to teaching and learning. With more academic demands, better scores at a faster pace than ever before. They've also shifted the role of teacher from head practitioner to head statistician. Now, this business-minded approach has also encouraged school districts, school districts, to gather data through district and state mandated standardized tests. A standardized test is any test with a common set of questions, common scoring criteria, and common administering procedures. Often these tests are high stakes, deciding the learning track of a child that she will rarely veer from. As a teacher, I have given standardized tests to children as young as 6. And in my years of teaching, the number of tests I have been required to proctor has increased dramatically. When I began teaching, I may have given as many as one standardized test. That's a may. But in more recent years, I've given as many as 10 standardized tests to young children in one school year. Now, this race to collect data on children, to number children, as John Taylor Gatto calls it, is ironic to teachers because as teachers, we've always collected data about children. We watch children. We observe their relationships to books and to numbers and to their friends. It is the qualitative data that complements the quantitative data in our practice. Now, in this big rush to gather all this data about children, we also have to acknowledge, if we want our teachers to be practitioners, we have to acknowledge kind of an elephant in the classroom, so to speak. I don't know if there's any teachers out there, but you might be thinking about this as I did. I have to acknowledge how our practice suffers when our classrooms are overcrowded. High class sizes will always result in more teacher time spent on classroom logistics, but never better practice. It is a point of quantitative data that is often overlooked, and it's just good practice. Tests don't teach. Teachers teach. We can all support civilly disobedient teachers, though, to be practitioners by looking beyond rejecting the academic designations, the 5 stars, the yellow ribbons, and entering our neighborhood schools. Look at the walls. Do you see child-created art on the walls? Do the children own the culture of the school? Or do the adults? Talk to teachers and staff. Volunteer to read once a month. We can all make our public schools worthy of our future citizens by becoming personally engaged, and we teachers invite you to do just that. Now, I know that this may sound a little bit like a rant, an angry teacher taking on the system, and you're a little bit right. I take teaching personally, and giving this talk has reminded me just how much I love it. And you know when you love something, you get to question it. Teachers are some of the most compassionate, educated people I know, but sometimes we become complicit in the more, better, faster approach to teaching and learning. Sometimes we have to survive. We race through the district-issued curriculum without consideration for all of our learners and their needs because someone told us we have to. We teach to the test because for some it could mean a monetary bonus or a better position that will benefit our family. I know this heartache viscerally. Teaching has never been more difficult. But when we pose civilly disobedient questions, as simple as asking why, not only do we encourage more child-centered practice, but we also elevate ourselves in the act. Now, you may have noticed I talk a lot about questions, but not much about answers. Often, when I ask a civilly disobedient question, when I ask why about a practice, I respectfully pose my question, and I do not ask for or expect an answer. Now, if I do get an answer, even if I don't like it, I consider it a bonus because I know that my message has been received, and I know that I have sent a message of resistance. This talk serves as my love letter to teaching and to public education. I love it, and I ask you to love it as well, because no matter your circumstances in life, you are impacted by its flourishing or its demise. Public education is a system that rests on us, the public. I'll end in mindful remembrance of one of my heroes, Rosa Parks. I don't know if Rosa Parks would have considered herself a hero, but to the second grade teacher, she is. She's with me often, and she's guided me often in my teaching career. I often think that if young Rosa could sit on the front porch in Pine Level, Alabama in the dark nestled between her grandfather and his shotgun, waiting out the monsters of the Jim Crow nights. I can ask for more recess for my students. If in later years Rosa could ask her captors as they entered the bus to arrest her that day, "Why do you all push us around?" I can raise my hand at a meeting and ask why my students are taking another standardized test. I believe Rosa Parks' brand of quietly strengthened civil disobedience for teachers is an idea worth spreading. Thank you.